Hi, everyone. Welcome to this first episode of Trade with an Accent, a podcast where you can get the latest world trade insights from OEC.world. My name is David Navalon. I am a marketing specialist and relationship developer at DataWheel, the company that's behind the Observatory of Economic Complexity. And we also have here with us today our chief economist, Gilberto Garcia. He has a master's degree in public policy, has been an associate professor at Carleton University, and has also been an associate investigator at the Ash Institute from Harvard University. Gilberto, how are you?
Well, David, very excited, very happy to be here with you and to start with the first ever episode of Trade with an Accent.
Yeah, this is a great opportunity to make people learn about trade in a easy way. We know that trade data sometimes can be messy, so this is a great opportunity for people to learn insights, the latest insights that we have on our platform. So amazing opportunity.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. That's the objective, right? To talk about trade and to try to do it as easy as possible and make the best of the awesome tools that we have on the OEC.
Sure. So should we start right away?
Yes, perfect.
Amazing.
Let's do it.
So let's start with a subject that has been in the news lately. There seems to be a change in the dynamics between the US and China. The relationship seems to be getting tenser. We are seeing all of these stories of Chinese balloons flying over the US, the US shooting down all of these balloons, some trade restrictions as well. How much of that are we seeing in that is translating into actual changes beyond all of that news cycle in the trade dynamics of both countries? Could you show us in the OEC how this trade has been changing, how we can see all of this in trade data?
Yes, absolutely. The starting point of the trade war was September 2018. At that point, the US imposed tariffs in a big number of products from China, something around $150 billion worth of products from China got tariffs all the way to sometimes 25%. So at that point, the trade between China and the US had a decline in almost like immediately and constantly during a period of time. Then COVID happened, right? And on March 2020, World Health Organization named COVID pandemic, and the whole world went into shutdown. Something that happened with China at that point was very interesting, right? Because first, China had a decline in exports to the US, where the US were having more imports from other places in Asia, for example, Vietnam. But it's still a installed capacity to continue exporting in the way that China has been doing for decades. So what I mean is there was some installed capacity that was not used at full, that was available when COVID happened. Something else that happened in this point in China is that China went into lockdowns before everyone else. It was the Chinese New Year celebration. Every February, exports from China are lower than normal anyway. But China was the first country to go into lockdown and get into that phase of the COVID pandemic faster than the rest of the world. So when the US started wanting more computers and other electronics that we were demanding to make offices in our houses or even schools in our houses, China was ready to provide those products to the US. So exports started going up to the point that you could hardly distinguish any additional effect of the trade war, at least in terms of this comparison of growth in terms of dollars. But then later, when we don't need more computers, we don't need more laptops or more other products related with COVID, but that part of that wave ended, that general trend of China's declining trade with the US has continued. And it has continued even if you analyze it or in other factors. For example, if you take out the seasonality and so on, it has changed trade between these two countries. Absolutely.
And do you think that this is a dynamic that would be here to stay, that this is something that in the future we will see getting stronger again? Because the US and China have a history of trade that has been really resilient. So do you think that this is something, are we going through only a process of more distrust between these countries, or is this a tendency that will only grow in the following years?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, right? There's that is important to point out that at the end of the day, we're analyzing the trade between these two economies from a certain point in time. But the data is showing a trade that, it's happening, but you can also see this from a different perspective, right? And this perspective is that even with a trade war between these two countries, and that has been affecting exports and imports or trade between these two countries, there are some products in that trade dynamic that they are very resilient. That even in the point of having a trade war and without the rhetoric that is happening around government officials, there are some products that are showing a lot of resilience, but others that are obviously and seriously being affected and for what's going on in terms of the trade war between these two countries. So to your question, it's obvious that the US and China continue to trade in large numbers. If you analyze it, for example, in terms of the growth that the US has in trade with China, at the end of the day, they continue to be very strong trade partners.
So which products, now that we know that there are certain products that are very resilient, which products are the ones that are having this more changing in the dynamics of trade, and where is the US getting all of these products from now? Are we seeing the rise of a new manufacturing king or something like that? Or what's going on with those products?
You can think of this as some countries that are competitors or with China in terms of they produce at least part of the different products that China exports, which are substantial. So in the case of Vietnam, for example, the kind of products that are increasing the most are machines, the kind of electrical machinery, for example, with products such as telephones, semiconductors, and so on. Another country that has been having good trade or better trade with the US and seems to be having benefit from the trade war between the US and China is Mexico. And there are obvious reasons for this. Mexico, in some products, is a competitor from China. It exports some of the products that China exports to. Mexico has a very stable trade agreement with the US. It is closer, has more points of entry to the US. So when there's bad weather, like stopping a particular port or a series of ports in the East Coast, for example, that really creates bottlenecks in trade between the US and China, then you have better options, more options in the trade between Mexico and the US. And finally, in Mexico, companies have a very sophisticated manufacturing tradition for years. So, for example, just in the last month with trade data from the US, which is November 2022, you see that Mexico continues to be growing in its trade with the US, and then in general, during this year, Mexico has been increasing its exports to the US in the kind of products that Mexico wants to increase their exports, because those products are attached to better jobs or more because they are more complex, they are more value added, and so on.
And regarding that, I was just about to ask about this nearshoring tendency. We had a summit with Canada, Mexico, and the US a couple of weeks ago. Did we hear any of that nearshoring tendency? What it was focused or centered around?
Yeah, that's it's a good question, right? You will expect that in this international gatherings, in this case, the three amigos that happen in Mexico City, in that are related to North America, you will expect that the conversation is more related with how to make North America more competitive. Normally, the discussion is on issues that are important, but that are very divisive, like migration, drugs, and or clean energy and then energy transformation. And I'm not saying that those topics are not important and are not worth to be considered or discussed. But the other conversation is missing, and the conversation is missing in this case is that if Mexico has more relevant manufacturing for the US and Mexico is more competitive in that way, bringing value chains closer to the US, you are also benefiting the US and Canada. Then you're sharing discussion conversations everywhere. People are talking about it because it is a real trend. Of course, it's a trend that has a lot of challenges and still, some manufacturing can be hard to move or unsuccessful in terms of your suppliers and things related with infrastructure and cost, delivery, and so on. Work. But you can track it back again to the trade war between the US and China and how that has substantially changed in the last years.
Amazing. So Gilberto, thank you so much for all of those insights. That was very entertaining. Thank you so much for taking us into a tour through the OEC as well and showing us how we can use the platform to get the most out of it. And I think that is everything we have for you today, Gilberto. I don't know if you have anything else to add.
No, just enjoying, as always, talking to you, and I look forward to have another conversation.
Amazing. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Thank you so much for listening to Trade with an Accent. And don't forget to follow OEC on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at OEC Today. And stay tuned for our next episode where we will discuss the effects of the Russia and Ukraine war 1 year after it started. Thank you so much for listening.